welcome to the Gwinnett Force. My name is Julie Monty, along with my fellow Family Violence Task Force members and co-hosts of the show, Sergeant Tracy Lee.
Hello, Julie.
And Jennifer Hope.
Hey, Julie.
Hey. On this episode, we'll be talking about cyberbullying with our special guest, Lieutenant Bill Wellmaker with Gwinnett County School Police.
Good morning, y'all.
Let's take a moment and talk about our roles in the community. Jennifer, we'll start with you.
I'm a licensed professional counselor with Atlanta Family Counseling Center, and I'm also president of the Family Violence Task Force in Gwinnett County.
Great. Sergeant Lee?
I work for the Sheriff's Department. I'm with the Court Services Division. I've been with them 20 years now.
Well, and Lieutenant Wellmaker?
Thank you. I'm a supervisor with the Gwinnett County School Police. I have 6 high school clusters that report up under me.
Wow.
And pretty much we deal with teaching as well as the safety and security of the schools.
Well, thanks. Welcome. Thank you, and welcome.
Thank you.
Sergeant Lee, before we start our discussion on cyberbullying, let's go ahead and look back at some of the stories that were in the news recently.
Well, Julie, first of all, I'd like to dedicate this show to Aubrey Nolan. We had a sad situation with one of our deputies that work with us. His grandson, Aubrey, committed suicide last March because of cyberbullying.
How old was Aubrey?
He was 13 years old. And he was a victim of cyberbullying, and this completely devastated his family, and we decided to dedicate this show to him so we can hopefully stop future tragedies like that.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get into that story a little bit later on in the episode. Go ahead and tell us about, we're in the 4th season.
Yeah, we just started our 4th season here with the Gwinnett Force.
That's so wonderful.
Unbelievable. Seems like just yesterday.
I know. It doesn't seem like it's been 4 years.
And
That's great.
you know, I just want to thank all of the crew behind us that support us on the show.
Absolutely.
Joe Sorensen, Trent Baumgardner, Derek Scanner, and many more. It's been,
You do a great job.
you know, they really have helped this show succeed. And also Sheriff Butch Conway for allowing us to do the show.
Absolutely.
I'd like to talk about a story that involved falls back on our human trafficking episode we did recently. A CEO out of Duluth was arrested for having sex with a 12-year-old. Apparently this girl was a victim of human trafficking. And
What?
yes, a businessman named Peter Privateer was arrested and charged with felony child molestation.
And now he's linked to human trafficking?
Well, because the girl that he was having sex with was a victim of the trafficking.
Right.
So I don't know if it came out on where she was originally from or how she got in the ring. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, I believe she was an immigrant.
It's amazing how they've taken and really have victimized the youth of America.
It's apparently he paid $600 to have sex with her when she was 12.
Oh my God, that
And
is disgusting.
a couple of years later, it leaked out.
How
and
old is he?
She's 15 now.
How old is he?
he's probably 56.
He was, yeah.
56.
And you know, this story really rocked the Sugarloaf Country Club community, obviously. But it happens in Gwinnett, like we talked about in that show. It's just, you know, it's here.
Yeah, and they said Atlanta was one of the biggest hubs for that. Isn't
That's
that what you
right.
guys talked about? So
This next story falls back on that. A story of a 49-year-old Norcross man who was arrested for trying to sell a 25-year-old Honduran man to someone in Alabama. He took this guy over there. The guy's name was Ming Zhang. He was charged with second-degree human trafficking. He's in jail right now in Alabama. And this is just more proof that human trafficking exists in the 21st century and right here in Gwinnett.
In this particular case, the victim in this actually realized what was starting to happen once they got over to Alabama. And even though he was in the country without documentation, he still came forward to the authorities. And
Wow.
that was brave of him.
Right.
You know, a lot of people wouldn't do that.
Right.
You know, it's just crazy to think that this stuff's going on. And but wanted to share that with our viewers since we talked about it in our previous episode.
Let's get back to the topic of our show, which is cyberbullying. What is cyberbullying?
Well, really, it's kind of like traditional bullying, but it's in mediums such as text, over Facebook, MySpace, instant messaging, so anything that's related to the computer or cell phone.
The technology growth and the boom within the United States has, made it so prevalent and so available to all ages.
Yeah.
The different types of equipment or media that are available. I mean, from the PlayStation and down to the Game Boy has the ability to access the internet.
And I mean, they're all doing it. I mean, the Facebook, the tweeting, the texting, everything, the MySpace.
Yeah,
Who
they
is
said,
doing so?
well, really 11 to 17-year-olds, but the most prevalent portion is that 14 to 17
Right.
range. And I read a statistic that said 75% of 14 to 17-year-olds are on the computer once a day, so they're using one of those mediums.
Once a day. I think it's,
It's more
way
than
more
that.
than that. But
Sure.
that's kind of like middle school age. And this goes back to kind of a discussion we had back when we were talking about teen violence.
Right.
A lot of the stuff goes on in middle school.
Yeah.
Middle school
Yeah.
is where it really kind of
Right.
starts.
It's that age where they're trying to figure out where they fit in, as they move from the adolescent through the preteen up into the teenage years, trying to be accepted and trying to figure out which direction their lives are starting to take.
Right, and sure, developmentally, they're, really looking for that identity versus who they are with their peers. And so that role confusion is a big identity crisis during that time.
Well, and this media is relatively new. I mean, 10 years ago we weren't having this problem, but
But we've always had bullying.
right.
Of
And
course.
how's that
Right.
changed?
And it,
Well, cyberbullying, you don't always have to know who the perpetrator is.
Right.
So with regular bullying, it would be very clear on who the bully was. In the cyber world, people are making up false profiles using different people's identity. And also on
good point.
Facebook, what they're having is different pages set. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but you can set up a page and become a fan of that. But you don't have to say who the author is of that.
Right.
wasn't there a grown woman that was bullying a
Yes, and she
teen,
got
and
convicted.
Right.
Yeah, but
That was a couple
the
years ago. But she
yeah.
set up a fake page
Mm-hmm.
saying she was a teenage girl.
Yeah.
Specifically to target the
Yes.
victim in this particular
Yes,
case.
and that victim did end up committing suicide,
Right.
which now they're calling cybercide.
Cyberside.
Cyberside. So when, when somebody commits suicide because of the cyberbullying, they're actually
Yeah,
calling
Why,
it
Turn.
why do you
cyberside.
think that the kids are starting to commit suicide at such an alarming rate
Well,
over this?
I work with a lot of adolescents at Atlanta Family Counseling Center that have experienced cyberbullying, and what they're saying is that it's such a large amount of people. Everyone's coming in, they're like, yeah, I don't like this person, and so a lot more people are joining in on that effort. They don't know where it's coming from, so they're afraid to go online, they're afraid to go outside because they don't really always know who is targeting them.
And they can't get away from it. This
Right,
is like
right.
24 hours a day. Back when I was a kid, back in the 1900s, I mean, out on the playground, if I had a problem with somebody, when I went home, it was over. But these kids, I mean, it's 24 hours a day,
Yeah.
7 days a week.
And people will sit and text or type something that they wouldn't say to you face to face.
Right.
Yeah, right,
They become
Exactly.
they become bold behind the keyboard.
That anonymity is really helpful for them to be able to be really impulsive. And as adolescents, that impulse behavior is already there. And so you're mad at somebody and it's real easy to just type it, whereas before you would have to find that person and verbally state something.
Right.
Also, a lot of times is now they're not seeing the reaction of the other person. So you can type something and not see how it directly affects the other person. Whereas before, when you're bullying, you can see how that could get into a fight or you'd have a reaction from someone else. With the
And
cyber,
also,
there's
in
not.
reading texts or messages, it may not be in the context it was meant. You may take it a different way.
Absolutely.
So, it could be bullying without being meant to be bullying. You know what I mean? But somebody takes it a different way.
Well, I mean, it's out of control. I mean, all across this country, kids are doing this and committing suicide at an astronomical rate. And,
What's amazing is that the bully that we knew growing up now is becoming the victim. He may be the bully in school, but when he leaves school, he's very, quite possibly becoming that victim as people begin to try to retaliate.
Yeah.
Well, let's pick this up in just a second. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
You've known for years that this is the #1 cause of lung cancer, smoking. That's why the Surgeon General issued this warning. But do you know the #1 cause of lung cancer for non-smokers? It's in this room. You can't see it or smell it. It's radon. Radon is an invisible radioactive gas that seeps inside your home from underground. It can build up to dangerous levels without notice. Now the Surgeon General has issued another lung cancer warning. And whether you smoke or not, breathing radon can cause lung cancer. That's why you need to have your home tested. Protect your family. Call 1-800-SOS-RADON. Heed the warning. Have your home tested, because radon problems can be fixed.
Welcome back. We are discussing cyberbullying at this episode with our guests Jennifer Hope and Lieutenant Bill Wellmaker. Lieutenant Wellmaker, tell us about the increase in bullying that you've seen over the years.
You know, what we have tended to experience, particularly from our standpoint within the school police department, is coming in on the tail end. Usually once something has kind of approached that stage of violating the criminal law, these schools themselves have actually approached the issue a little bit more direct by trying to put interventions in place before it reaches that point, you know, trying to set up counseling.
Well, explain to our viewers, what exactly is the Gwinnett County School Police?
Well, the Gwinnett County School Police is a police department certified by the state of Georgia, and we have our state certification. We're there to enforce the laws on campus, as well as doing counseling, mentoring, and teaching in the classrooms.
And so you have your own chief, and
We're not any different than any other police department here in Gwinnett outside the hours that we work. We're primarily Monday through Friday, 7 to 5.
well, have you seen a big increase in bullying in the last few years, or?
What again, going back, what we've seen is brought to our attention as we're investigating cases. You know, my son did this or my daughter did this because they were a victim of bullying and they just couldn't take it anymore.
So most of the time the parents are coming to you.
Correct.
Okay.
I've had a few instances where a student would come to me saying, I'm having this problem with this student. It all originated off of some stuff that was being posted back and forth on Facebook. We were friends. And then it's just, now we're not friends anymore.
Now, does the school allow kids to have their cell phones with them during the day, or how's that work?
They are allowed to have their cell phones. Primarily school rules kind of dictate that they be turned off between 7 and 3, or the school hours, but realistically...
But with the technology now, it's more than a cell phone. I mean, it can be, little...
Well, you're right on the
computer,
internet. I mean,
Facebook and
yeah.
everything.
You can go right, you can go straight to Facebook, MySpace.
And cameras are on them. I mean, didn't you tell me recently about somebody who took a picture of somebody crying and then forwarded it to people? And
Yeah, we were discussing a movie that I had opportunity to use in one of the cyber classes that we teach through the Georgia Cyber Safety Institute, in which the girl was on the playground, got kicked in the face with a soccer ball and started crying, and there were other kids on the playground with their cell phones out and started videoing her crying. And then by the time she left school today and started walking home, she just started receiving texts, making fun of her crying.
Crybaby or something.
And then the video got posted.
Well, and it goes back kind of, Tracy, what you said earlier was that you can't get away from it. Like you can leave school and somebody might forget it the next day, but then after that you can't.
Right.
Well, it's crazy how it all works out, but...
Well, can you tell us what the schools have done in order to kind of help fight this bullying?
Well, what's kind of taken place over the last couple of years is they've begun trying to implement programs to increase self-esteem, trying to address the victim, from the victim standpoint, doing some mentoring programs, trying to do interventions to address the issues when they occur.
Now, does a child have to sign up for these classes, or is it just given to all students?
It's being handled from a multi-prong.
Okay.
They're actually being taught, as classes, but then as, problems, the staff's made aware of problems, they begin to try to address it that way too,
Okay.
whether it's one-on-one or the victim and the bully both, trying to do some mediation, and trying to resolve the problem.
Wanted to mention something. I'd cut out an article from the Gwinnett Daily Post. Said the Gwinnett County Public Schools report that disciplinary panels are up.
Right.
And a big percentage of that was the abuse, threats, and intimidation category, which included bullying.
Correct. When you look at the school rule violations, bullying is one of those that's included up under that. So they tend to try to address behaviors, and they've started using positive behavior interventions to initially address the issue, and then ultimately, as they've continued to exhibit signs that the escalation of the discipline increases. Where unfortunately the panels have increased, but
there's been some new rules, I understand, with the school, or some laws that have went into effect.
Right. State of Georgia came back and modified the statute addressing bullying within the schools back in September of this year, which will actually go into effect January 1st. And in essence, what it does is it brings the cyberbullying element into the rules, as far as how the school will address it. And what's interesting about it is, even though it may occur off campus, if it comes back into the campus and interferes with the learning process of the student or the school in general, then the school can address that from a disciplinary standpoint.
Well, I think the schools have been pretty aggressive in trying to address this and have done a good job. It's just, I think the parents are going to have to get more involved with their kids.
It's an overall cultural change.
Exactly.
Not only within the school, but within the community and the family itself.
Nation.
Yeah, and what a lot of the parents are saying is, well, I don't know how to do all those things. So, the kids are going on and they don't really know.
Right.
It's global. I read a story out of England the other day where they were having the same issues over there.
Right.
Yeah, it's been documented all over.
It's critical that parents realize what their kids are doing through the internet, monitoring not only their computer usage but their cell phone usage as well.
Yeah.
I want to get back to the story of Aubrey Nolan, 13-year-old. This is such a sad story.
I know. I lost it.
His grandfather is Sam Nolan. He used to be a sergeant with the police department. He currently is working with us here as a deputy sheriff.
Right.
Aubrey, a good kid, smart, straight A, had a little weight problem and got teased about it. And
played the tuba, I think Sam said. One of those big
some
instruments.
kind of musical instrument. He had musical talents. He just had everything going for him. Very polite kid. I think Sam shared a story where they were out somewhere and he saw a homeless man. And
they were going shopping. He had like $20 in his pocket.
$40.
$40.
His last $40. And $40 is a lot of money for a kid.
Right.
Yeah.
Saw the homeless man and went up and gave it all to him. That's the kind of kid he was. It's sad that, talking to Sam, he said that the family did not see this coming at all.
Yeah, he said
usually
he didn't
there's
show
warning
any signs.
and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but it was a normal day. They were at home. I guess his grandmother had got some groceries or something, and Aubrey went up to his room and called down to his grandmother, I'll be down to help you put the groceries away or something like that. He didn't come down, and so she went up there about 20 minutes later to check on him, and she found him dead in his room. He had taken a gun that he had found that his mother had hidden, and actually used a pillow to muffle the shot.
Wow.
And he left a suicide note and everything. And it's just, a lot of thought went into this, and it's just sad that they didn't see any warning signs.
One thing we need to mention also, Sam said that the bus driver was also bullying him. This is a grown man that was also making comments about
Yes, a Jackson County bus driver. I guess he was getting on the bus one day
with his big instrument case,
and in front of all the other kids says, "Hey, what's that, your lunchbox?"
Oh no, that's so devastating.
The sad thing is people don't realize the slightest thing they can say can be the wrong thing to say.
be a trigger.
Well, and on top of everything else, it's kind of like that last statement can,
right.
move somebody to that next level.
Yeah, it's just a sad
What happened to the bus
situation.
driver? I mean,
He
got
lost
fired.
his job,
Okay.
He got
which
fired.
is
Um,
nothing
Comparatively, yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, I asked Sam, I said, Sam, looking back, is there anything you would do different? And he just basically said he wished he'd had that conversation about life and its value and stuff like that he can't have now.
Yeah, our children need to realize that, they are an important part of what's going on in life. And we as parents, as adults in the community, need to encourage and nurture them more than just letting them be raised by the media that's out there that's pretty much developing what is their normal behavior.
Well, and I think Sam said that there was 2 other suicides in the Jackson County School District.
yes, in the last year.
That's unbelievable. I mean, when I was a kid, we didn't hear this kind of thing. And
Yeah, I mean, we've had, a lot of recent adolescents with they attempted suicide by, overdosing and things like that. Luckily, they, didn't die, but because of people making fun of them and this cyberbullying, it's.
I guess the bottom line, no family is out of touch with
Oh,
this.
absolutely
I mean, it's within reach for all of our families.
It knows no economic or social bounds.
That's right.
Well, we're going to discuss what we can do to stop it or try to prevent it, educate people about the resources that are available out there when we come back. We'll be right back.
They've stormed beaches and freed countries. Protected the weak and defeated the strong. Shown courage and compassion. They've raised our flag and our hope. They've been called leathernecks. They've been called devil dogs. But above all, they're called Marines.
Well, welcome back to the show. Thank you for joining us. We're talking about cyberbullying today, and at this point, we're going to try to find out about how we can stop it. Any suggestions?
What can we do to fight this? And, what are the warning signs, first of all?
Well, a lot of times when kids are being bullied online, their behaviors with the technology will change. So if they're being bullied, they may not want to answer their calls. They may not want to be on the instant messaging. They may not, get onto Facebook as often. And they may also be scared to go outside. I know we kind of talked about that earlier because they don't always know where that's coming from. And so we see the normal signs, not being involved in activities, problem sleeping, those typical kind of depressed symptoms that we would
You
see.
mentioned something about
From the school standpoint, you'll see an increase in absenteeism. You'll start to see a drop in grades,
Yeah.
Withdrawal from extracurricular activities, primarily because, again, as you mentioned, they're not sure where to go. The problem is their friends have actually started to become their enemies because their friends aren't taking up for them.
what can the school do to further fight this?
Well, from the school standpoint, they're looking at, particularly here in Gwinnett, we're in the process of reviewing the interaction of the various departments within the school system, counseling, the social workers, educational components, the school police department, to see what we can do to continue to provide that safe learning environment where they're in their comfort zone. What we hope to accomplish is to change the culture to basically bring more civility in and to further nourish and change the morals of the students involved at a younger age so that, we can start to change that culture. But it takes the family and the community to get involved as well.
And for there to be some really clear consequences. We talked about, 10 years ago this wasn't an issue, and so now that it is, we're really able to see that there's laws in place that we can utilize.
Right. One of the things with the laws that are in place now as far as addressing education, on the third occurrence of bullying by a student, this is automatically going to a disciplinary panel. And they have that.
Does it have to be the same student that is being bullied?
No, it's the person.
It's the bully.
The bully
Okay.
actually would end up going to the disciplinary panel.
Right, but the bully
and removed from that school.
Is it just the one person that he's bullying, or is he bullying several different people?
Well, you would have several different instances, and it could be different people
Okay.
involved. The other part of it is there's a requirement now that they have to notify the parents of the child who is being bullied.
And as a parent, Jennifer, what can we do?
Well, a good thing parents can do is make sure that the computers are in a localized, place in the living room or something like that, to be mindful if your child's always coming over and closing the computer to really find out what's going on, to give them really good advice on how to be safe online, not giving your address, not giving your phone number, not saying your age and things like that.
They need to and take it a step further and also monitor with the text and the photos and everything
yeah.
will be taken on the cameras.
Yeah, and there's, you can contact
Yeah.
your cell phone provider and you can actually monitor those things, and parents really need to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
In the beginning, when it wasn't a big deal, it was, parents were like, oh, well, they're probably not doing anything anyway, but that's just not the case now.
That's also going to create some problems with the family. If I'm going to my child and saying, give me your phone, I'm checking all of it out. So there's got to be some
and I would take the
discussion
stance that you
prior.
would rather be safe
Right.
than the alternative.
And that's what we did at my house. My teenage daughter wanted a Facebook. Okay, the deal was you can have a Facebook, but the parents can monitor it. So my wife routinely gets on there and reads the post and stuff just to make sure it's all straight up. And
It's an educational issue. I mean, not from a school standpoint, but from a family standpoint, it's building that trust, knowing that you're not going to go to an extreme in dealing with the issue. If they bring it to you and say, hey, this is what's going on, the child has to be able to trust a parent or an adult to be able to address the issue.
And that's the big part, is that the parents need to be supportive and not say, oh, it's no big deal,
I
people
think
are going to say whatever.
the parents need to get involved in all of this stuff. Tweeting. I mean, all the phones have cameras now, so every time something happens, you see everybody with their phone doing this, taking pictures, and there's a lot of stories I've heard of like sexting.
Right.
Have you had those stories pop up? And
it's occurring throughout the United States. It's a phenomenon that young people just don't really realize what they're doing and how it will impact their lives.
And once it's out there, you can't take
bring it back
That's right.
in. Well, and I was talking to some clients, and that's what they're saying is, people are asking them for photos and things like that, and so there's a lot of pressure on them to produce those things. But at the end of the day, what they were saying was the boys are more likely to post bad pictures, where girls are more likely to say bad things in writing.
Well, yeah, they said that the females are more apt to be the victim and the perpetrator of cyberbullying than males.
Wow.
what do you think the long-term effects are on these kids? I mean, down the road, do you think they're going to have issues over this? You mentioned something about a high school reunion once. That can you share that story with us?
Well, actually, I think it was Julia that was mentioning the high school reunion where they had taken a video of a prank that had occurred back when they were in high school 25 years earlier, and then brought that video back out.
At the 25-year reunion, they showed this video again, and
they spray painted the guy's rear end out on the football field or something like that.
Goodness.
yeah,
And then they thought it would be funny to show it at the class reunion.
yeah.
Well, and so I'm sure that person took a really long time to kind of get through that, and
Well,
then
nobody
at the end
really
of the
knows
day,
at that point. It wasn't me who.
Well, I'm just thinking
This
like
happened to-
self-esteem issues with girls and stuff. If this is happening in middle school,
Well,
You know,
obviously, it's
follow
not just the girls. I mean,
Right.
boys.
You know,
Well, there's confident issues, then there's trust issues, because if we were friends, then you delete me, and then you're saying all these things about me, and then everybody's jumping on that
Right.
bandwagon. I mean, that creates, a lot of
Right.
insecurities for me.
And part of that change that we've got to really be able to push through the community and through the schools is for that third party bystander. You know, you don't have to be cool to support the bully.
right.
You know, it's okay to support the victim, stand up for the victim, and let the bully know that the actions that they're doing are just wrong.
I think that's a great message.
There was something that said every half hour, 48 kids a day commit suicide as a result of cyberbullying. And this is worldwide.
Oh, repeat
I mean,
that
it's global.
statistic again.
Every half hour, 48 kids a day commit suicide as a result of cyberbullying.
That is.
So 48 kids a day.
Every half hour.
Every half hour.
That's hard to conceive.
Well, you
There's-
hear about it on the news. I know it's increased. That's just unbelievable.
Well, there's some really good websites out there that we've come across in doing some of this research, and www.cyberbullying.org is one of them, and I'm sure that we'll be able to put that link on our website.
Yeah, absolutely.
I found one called www.dosomething.org and then overcomebullying.org.
Victims just need to report it. You know, they need to go out and get help because help's out there.
Right, help is out
Right,
there.
and so, even parents can go to mental health professionals, licensed professional counselors, and just kind of talk through those issues and work on, building that self-esteem back up.
Right.
So it's not
You
that
need to
there's no
start
help
early,
out
though.
there.
And here in Gwinnett, I'd also like to, suggest that parents visit www.gwinettschoolpolice.com, which is our link to our Gwinnett County Public Schools website, in which we've got some items up there that address the school rule issues, that address bullying, drug usage, and the different consequences of it.
We'll
Well,
have to
I
get that
think,
on our website also.
Yeah.
The schools have done a wonderful job. Obviously, they've won awards here recently, a national award, won $1 million, I believe.
Yeah, the Brogue Award was a very good accomplishment for the school system, which will enable numerous students to attend college, on after high school.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
great.
a lot of people move to Gwinnett just for the schools. And
Well, that's all the time we have for this episode. I'm sorry. We'd like to thank our special guest, Lieutenant Bill Wellmaker.
Thank you.
thank you for being on.
Thank you,
It
yes,
was
and for all your
great.
hard work.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us. You can find some more information about Gwinnett County Family Violence Task Force at our website, www.gwinnettfamilyviolence.org. Thank you for watching the Gwinnett Force on TV Gwinnett.